My City, Superliminal, and Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. This is Staying In. Sam, can I say thank you to you? You've changed my life in many ways. I honestly, it's changed my life. It has. I was around there. I was around your house a while ago, socially distanced, and you let slip that you keep your biscuits in the fridge.
Oh yes.
And I don't know why I'd never thought of this before. Pete, Dan, do you do this? Do you keep your biscuits in the fridge?
Do you keep all biscuits in the fridge, or just
no? This is the thing. Chocolate biscuits, Dan.
I mean, I don't, but I can understand the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And the other day I was thinking, should I text him? Because I couldn't remember if he said the fridge or the freezer.
Freezer if you can, but fridge will do.
Honestly, it's changed my life because A, the biscuits are great. You never have to worry about melted chocolate.
Nope.
But B, I'm actually eating less biscuits. It's actually controlling my diet a lot more.
Yeah, because you go into the cupboard thinking, I'll get a biscuit. Oh, we haven't got any left because they're in the sodding freezer.
And when you take the biscuit out, it's so frozen, you have to basically gnaw at it for an hour.
Oh, it's incredible. During my tenure as a pizza chef, I'll say that again. During my tenure as an Italian chef, when I had access to a blast freezer where we would keep the fresh dough,
I think it's important that we clarify the Italian chef aspect of this story involves you working at Pizza Hut. I don't want you to get above your station here, Sam, and try and pretend you're something you're not.
Other poor chain restaurants for pizza are also available. So you had access to something called a blast freezer,
like an industrial freezer. So you probably like the home freezer drops below like -1 degree Celsius or something like that, between like -1, -5. This is like in the -10s, and you slap a packet of milk chocolate hobnobs in that thing, and you're riding a different train. It's incredible. So chocolate hobnobs, undoubtedly the best biscuit. Are improved from the chiller, from the fridge into the freezer. Another biscuit that is improved by the experience is the milk chocolate caramel digestive.
I see, that one is what I thought. When you mentioned putting it in the fridge, my first thought was, ooh, the milk chocolate caramel ones will work well.
This is monstrous.
Mm-hmm. Just most, if not all, biscuits are improved by coming straight out the fridge, if not the freezer.
Okay, what about your staples like your bourbons, your custard creams, your rich teas,
your malted milks? You're nice.
Yeah, why not?
You're kidding me. I mean, like these. Why? I thought maybe the chocolatey element was the thing that tied all of this together, but you're saying that.
See, I think basically what's happening here, Pete, is Sam has taken the idea of putting the chocolate-based biscuits in the fridge or the freezer, because obviously chocolate might be nicer when it's not going to melt, and it's kind of nicer that way. He's then developed a taste for cold biscuits, and has now just expanded it to encompass everything, and he's just lumping them all in when he says all biscuits are better. It's because he's just developed a taste for a cold biscuit now.
And what you're saying is this has become a sort of perversion rather than an actual taste thing.
Yeah, Sam actually goes to the supermarket now and takes things off the shelf and drops them in the freezer section.
Oh, whoops! Oh, and a sort of like cheeky, oh, look at me, I'm such a scamp.
And then picks them back up on the way out of the shop so they're nice and cold for him so he can eat them with the car.
The science does back you up, I'm afraid to say. But I think from texturally and the mouth feel of a biscuit is improved by it not being served at room temperature.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
But then you don't have the whole thing of, oh, I'm going to go just nip into the biscuit tin.
Well, yeah, the biscuits in the fridge.
What's it called? What's it called when you get a wine to the right temperature? Is it chambre or something like that, which is room or something? It's the same with biscuits, isn't it?
Yeah,
where you get the right temperature. Chris.
And if you want to heat them up, that's what tea's for, isn't it?
For the entirety of the start of this podcast, Pete's face has just been a combined look of like disgust, confusion, and just kind of being utterly perplexed by this entire
I mean, as an umbrella term, I'd say smacked arse.
Yes. Yeah. Grimace. Like I've eaten a bee.
Repulsion.
I don't get it. I'm sorry. I can understand putting something like a Mars bar or a Snickers bar into a freezer. Absolutely. That's a delicious, chewy treat.
I had the opposite occur when before lockdown, I went round to my neighbour's where he was cooking for me and my partner. And he was cooking some kind of like open pie, or no, some kind of pie. And
a lazy pie. Just say what it is, Chris.
Yeah, it was a pie. Yeah, it was a lie, not a pie, Sam. You're right. And I said, I opened the fridge and I go, "Where's your pastry?" And he said, "Oh, it's in the cupboard." I was like, "What?"
Oh, no.
And I got this pastry out of his cupboard. It's like warm room temperature pastry, and he's like, "It'll be all right, won't it?" I was like, "It's got butter in it." So I watched him kind of like, he couldn't really roll it out because obviously it's not chilled. So the butter had already started to melt in it. And it was probably one of the worst pastries I've ever eaten, to what was an incredible filling. And all of us felt quite ill afterwards. But do you have that thing where there are certain things that you keep in the fridge that other people keep in the cupboard? Like, I know some people keep tomato sauce in their cupboard, not their fridge, or vice versa. I only found out the other day that you should keep soy sauce in the fridge.
Yeah.
I'd always kept it in the cupboard. I don't know why. I don't know why that gets a free pass compared to other things.
I'm definitely a ketchup in the fridge sort. Yeah. Once it's open, I will say that.
I think a lot of the time is if there's a seal, it's fine in the cupboard till you've broken the seal, and then it's got to be in the fridge.
Yeah.
I used to be everything in the fridge, man. Eggs, bread, biscuits.
Why?
Ketchup.
Well, eggs are supposed to be in the fridge, aren't they?
No, they're not. Eggs are supposed to be out of the fridge.
So just in case we don't poison any of our foreign listeners, Americans, you are meant to keep them in the fridge because you do some weird thing with them. You bleach them or something like that. But if you're in Europe, I believe you keep them in the cupboard.
My rule of thumb is always, where do they store them in the supermarket?
See, no, I agree to that. And obviously, eggs are not stored in the fridge in the supermarket. However, if you look on the egg box, the instructions for storage does say to keep it in the fridge.
He's off. Pete's
he's
off.
gone.
See, I don't think that's true either. I think you definitely don't keep eggs in the fridge.
Yeah, and there's certain sauces that you really should be throwing after like a few days, but you think, chili sauce, that'll keep forever, won't it? Surely it'll be fine. It smells okay.
I've got a tub of mustard in the fridge that is at least maybe about 9 or 10 months old.
You're saving it for special occasions, like when the Queen comes around.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
He's got his egg box
of eggs.
So these are happy eggs. Other eggs that are not mean to chickens are also available.
He's looking.
Oh my god!
Oh,
mind
Dan, you're
blown.
Absolutely right.
I am absolutely right. I'm not going to lie. In the time it took you to go get the eggs, my confidence in my thoughts dropped significantly.
It says here, keep eggs refrigerated after purchase to maintain freshness. I always thought you could keep them out, and I do, and I will continue to keep them out.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
The
rule of thumb being that the supermarket keeps them out means it's not going to really harm them, except for you folks in America.
Yeah.
But I also go just by the instructions on the packet.
Yeah, that's what I usually do, and I must admit, I didn't think Well, you know what? Every day's a school day, isn't it?
Also, I guess to back up Dan's point, every fridge I've ever bought has come with one of those egg trays.
Yeah,
that is also true.
Got that.
So there's
must
reasoning.
know something.
Yeah, I just thought it was like Samsung trying to force me to do something like I didn't want to do.
I'm just making a note in my diary. Email Egg Council of Britain. I want to find out what the official line is on all of this, because that is. We must have an egg council. We must do. We absolutely must do.
I look forward to the follow-up conversation in our next podcast.
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know if you're in the same boat that I am. Like, having finished Last of Us Part 2, like I really struggled to try and find like that was a massive investment in time. Probably a bit too much time and emotion. So like the game that I'm playing off the back of that is like almost like the Rebound game is a real big struggle to find, like something that's going to like just be the palate cleanser to that kind of experience. Like it's definitely not Flight Simulator, definitely not anything like that. I bounced off against things like Mark of the Ninja, and I thought about going into Assassin's Creed Odyssey again, but quickly decided not to. So like, yeah, I think like for me, that's definitely not a good proposition at the moment. Like knowing like going into that game back off the just off the back of The Last of Us Part 2, I'm definitely looking for something that's a little more appreciative of my time and sort of like something that I know I can digest a little bit easier. So like, do you think you're there at the moment? You're ready for that kind of commitment, Pete?
I think I'm at the point where I have been playing a lot of smaller time investment games and a lot of games without much of in the way of like direction in a good way. So like obviously talked about Skater XL and been playing a ton of that, just an absolute ton of that. That came off the back of Animal Crossing, and I've really been enjoying these games in which the sessions can be as short as you want them to be. But I think the thing I've definitely found a lot of fun with recently is, and I think we've all found a lot of fun with it recently, Chris, is Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Yeah. That's the one that I've kind of found a lot of enjoyment.
The game
with.
That is pretty much the antithesis of Last of Us Part 2 in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's
is it though?
It's short.
Obviously there are those obvious similarities, but
yeah, that really, really grim stage, which gets really narrative. But I've really enjoyed it, and I think it's kind of the way I think about it, because I've been thinking about it a lot, because I think it is very smart, and I always get a bit like prickly when people just keep like copying the same genre formats over and over again. It's like we had PUBG and Fortnite. It was like, yeah, okay, this is enough. And then like a whole bunch of other ones came along. It was like, oh, come on, no one wants any of these. I didn't really know anything about Fall Guys until it was available on PS Plus as a free download this month. And I downloaded it, and it is basically Fortnite, except I think I might be able to win it maybe one time. Like it's a squishy platformer, right? It's kind of, well, it's if you've ever seen something like Takeshi's Castle or what's the other one?
Total Wipeout, and It's a Knockout.
Yeah, Ninja Warrior and all that sort of stuff. Funhouse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of that stuff. It's that, and you play as. You have your little character, and you can customize them out with lots of little doohickeys and so forth. And there is a sort of economy of it. Like there's soft currencies and a slightly more premium currency, and it's a whole thing. But it is a paid game generally, and that is cosmetic stuff at the moment. And it's got seasons, and it's got live content. It's a live game, all that sort of nonsense. But it is basically a platformer in which there's not too many buttons. It's move your little rice-looking beanie guy around, and then there's a jump button. I think R2 is grab.
Yeah.
Square is dive. Mm-hmm. And there's the face buttons will do little emotions, so like you can do little dances and stuff. And yeah, and it's a knockout game. It's basically like the stages are. They're usually races or little activities, and the races, for example, are stages where everyone starts at the beginning line, and I think you start with 60, 70 people, and there's a finish line, and you've got to get there, and in between there will be, let's say, doors, and some of them are fake and some of them are real, and you try and jump through some of the doors, and you end up booping your face. And then some of them are like little slippery, slidey slopes, and if you don't go up them in quite the right way, then you slide back down again. And little swinging pendulums that will take you off. And it's a big multiplayer online game, again, in the same way as like Fortnite is. But as I say, like, it feels a bit like Fortnite in that like it's become this phenomenon, like seemingly overnight, and then I feel like it's just this really nice arena game. Like it doesn't feel like Fortnite where like I'm shooting you in the face and now you're dead and now you're out, and then as soon as if in Fortnite, I was thinking about this a lot actually. If you're not first, if you don't win in Fortnite, you're a loser. If you don't win in Fall Guys, you kind of feel like, oh well, I got unlucky. Like there's never this sense of like, oh they really messed me up. And even if somebody grabs you and chucks you off, like off a ledge by accident or on purpose, you just kind of feel like, oh well, it's all silly and fun, and there aren't really ways to troll people, and I've had a great time. Oh well, I'll just restart and go again.
Also, there isn't that thing which really frustrated me about Fortnite, which is like you think you're doing really well, and then like in a split second, that's it, you're out, you're down.
Yeah.
And the odds are stacked against you from that point.
Yeah.
Whereas what I like about Fall Guys is that it's very clever in making you think that no matter how bad it is going for you, you still think there's a chance that I
might
can
get
make
through
it.
this.
I'll make it.
Because
I'll make
everybody else could be doing just as badly at any given time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been. It probably has been like the game that has refreshed me from the Last of Us experience. Like that's definitely what I was hankering at, is a bright and breezy platforming game. I never really thought about it until you said it, about how like it is a platformer, and I think like it is an exceptionally clever title. I hope it will stick around. I hope it won't be a flash in the pan. I hope they will. I think they will carry on supporting it, but I hope that they support it in the right ways and give it all that fresh content that it needs. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, they started, because obviously when it first came out, all of the brands got in touch and were just like, oh, make a Fall Guy skin of this gaming chair, and oh, why don't you dress the Fall Guy up like Captain America or whatever. Yeah. And the other day they said they did I don't know whether it's finished, I left it the best bit I think, but they said, all right, for the highest donation to special effect, we will make a costume of your brand.
That's amazing.
And when I left it yesterday, a B-Day company in America had pledged $44,001 and the costume that they made was the little Fall Guys bean wearing a jacket that said, "Ask me about my butthole."
That's amazing.
I don't know how the competitions.
Didn't I see on Twitter today? Someone was saying, I think it was something along the lines that if a certain tweet got 1 million likes or something, or 1,000 likes, they would delete the yellow team from.
Yeah. There is a massive thing on the Fall Guys Twitter about how everyone hates the yellow team, and it's becoming like a really big thing about if you're on the yellow team, you're always going to lose.
I have lost quite a lot of the yellow team, I have to say.
Yeah, I've lost quite a lot on yellow actually.
One of the games is like a Rocket League type game, and I've been in 2 of those matches in the yellow team, and in both cases our team was a man down, and I was like, hang on a minute, this isn't fair, and I lost both those times.
I have a really love-hate relationship with this game because I joined it quite late because I was away, Soz, and you had played it, and I joined quite late, and I already felt that you got a bit of a head start on me, and then I realised, no, it wasn't that, it was just because I'm crap at it. And we played together, and I went out in the first round, and I just had to watch you play for the remainder of the rounds, and I didn't get any enjoyment from that, really.
I think the most heartbreaking thing about the reaction of like you not being very good at it is that if it were a real life Fall Guys, as in if it was actually like these events were things that we as a group could literally go to, I think you'd be the best among us, and I'd probably be the worst.
I don't know, I'm not sure, but what happened afterwards, after we left, Pete, after we all said bye, oh, thanks for hanging out with me, awesome, it was lovely to watch you play, you went away. Pete said, I know what's going to happen, Chris, it's going to burrow under your skin and you're going to be thinking about this game. I said, no, it's not going to happen, Pete, it's an awful game, player elimination, it's horrible, it's awful, it's unforgiving. I got so angry when I was playing it, so angry. So this is not chilling, this is not relaxing, it's awful, it's horrible, horrible, stupid game. 30 minutes later I was back on there.
Yeah, of course.
And then in the penultimate round I scored the winning goal for my team, and in the last round, the 5th round, I was down to the final 6. Then I thought, I'm loving it. Then I was booted out. I hate this game. I hate this game. And as long as you can kind of be, I mean, for me personally, that's my mentality when I play this game. It's entirely split down the middle. I don't know what I think of this game, but however, unconsciously, I seem to like this game. And I don't know whether it's because I kind of have an affinity and I want to hang out with you lot, or actually it's just the fact that it has, as Sam says, it's a bit of a tonic from everything else I'm playing or experiencing at the moment in life. It is bright, it is colourful, it is silly, it is also very inoffensive. It feels a bit like, it's the closest I get at the moment to a Nintendo-esque game. It's squishy, it's cuddly, it doesn't have that kind of monochromic palette of something like PUBG, and it's not literally offensive in terms of shooting each other as you would get in Fortnite. It is essentially a herd of people frantically pushing against each other, using the weight of other people to open doors.
And it is so funny. Like the humour of it is that slapstick humour that I think actually video games does really well. Like in things like Human Fall Flat. Like it is that physical humor that even when you're watching your pals, because you can group up as a set, and it handles the multiplayer a bit strangely in that you are all on the same team. If you're in let's say we would all be on the yellow team, let's say, for example, if we ended up in a team event, but it is still also just everybody out for themselves. But I do feel like even when we've all been eliminated and I've just been watching, Sam get his victory, victory royale.
I did, yeah.
Like,
thank you.
it is.
I mean, I'm a bit upset it's taken until now to mention that.
Yeah, because you're very humble. It is very exciting and fun. It's funny to watch because it's like, like you feel that sort of like nervous, like energy, laughter of like, you were close there. But also, like, you're rooting for them. Like, you really feel like you're actually rooting for the people who are getting through this. Like, again, like you're on the sideline in whatever daytime television show that this is sort of like inspired by. Like I kind of feel like I'm the sort of like the mate who's on the sideline, like, yeah, Barry's got a brilliant chance for this event. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Woo! All right, thanks. Yeah, great. And like, I'm being interviewed by Chris Akabusi, and he's saying like, what do you think Barry's chances are? And I'm like, I can't. It's gonna be great. He's brilliant. Yeah. So I just love it.
I remember like, so I played it a couple of times, and then just by myself, and then Pete, me and you had come on and we're like, let's give this a go. And I kind of said to you, like, this is really fun. I wasn't sure how kind of the longevity of it, how long it would last, kind of still being fun. But I'd mentioned to you that I don't really know how this is going to work as a multiplayer. Because as you say, it is every man for himself. So you don't really, there's no real interaction, no cooperative element to it. And so I just wasn't sure. I didn't really think it would work. And then literally, I think the first game we played, I went out in like the first or second round. And I think you stayed into like to the fourth or maybe even the final. But the hilarity of just me watching you go through these, and sometimes it was because you're doing so brilliantly, good. Other times it was like I was just screaming at you because you're doing it wrong, and I'll try to explain to you what you were doing wrong. But you have that. But also, like, there was one where I think you were spectating, and there's a certain race where you're on seesaws, which I know you and Pete, you and Sam absolutely detest. I actually quite like the seesaw race, but I was going along and you were kind of spectating, and you were kind of like trying to help me, and you were like, and jump and go, and trying to kind of it was almost like a team effort then of like, as you said, those cheerleaders on the side of the field. It was great. And yeah, I do think it's a really good fun kind of, whether it's a palate cleanser. I mean, the thing with Fortnite, I got to the final few a couple of times, but every time I did that, it was because I'd spent the entire match hiding. I mean, I'd not fired a single bullet. I'd spent the entire match hiding in a bush and happened to find myself in the middle. And so when I eventually get to the end, you kind of like, there's very little satisfaction. There's a bit of humor because I've just hidden my way here. But at least with kind of Fall Guys, if you get to the final, and I've got to the final quite a few times, I've yet to win my first crown. The closest I got was when I was picked at the post. I got to the final two. I was picked to the post by Sam, which was very annoying. But
if you come for the king.
But in those cases, I do feel like I've achieved something. There's not a lot of skill that goes into these games. Certain games have a bit more skill levels than others, whether it's kind of your balance or kind of timing of jumps and stuff like that. There is a little bit of trolling from that. I think that came in very quickly. The kind of people who stand around at the end of the match and kind of try and stop people from finishing. There was one diabolical moment that I played that you guys were watching where there's a certain match where it's a memory game where you have to pick the right pad with the right picture on it. If you get it wrong, you'd fall off. And I picked the right one, and it was in the fourth of like the penultimate round. I picked the right one, and then just at the last second, someone just pushed me off. And I just literally screamed because I was so angry.
Livid.
I can only apologise, Dan.
Well, currently at time of recording, the donation to special effects stands at $420,069.
And this is still the Bidet company, so.
No, it's Ninja and AIM Lab.
All right, great. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I can't wait for Jeff Bezos to come along and make it even more fun. Jesus, leave it alone, Ninja. Jesus, like.
Why couldn't we have our B-Day man?
Just let the B-Day man get his nice costume.
You know what? I'm happy with my boxing glove wearing pigeon outfit stripy man.
Pete, what celebrity would you like your Fall Guy to?
This is a very, very good question.
Be analogous to?
Now, do we think Pete will actually come up with an actual celebrity? Or will he kind of have a bit of a brain freeze? And like in the last episode where he was asked to think of a famous Jennifer, he just said one of his friends.
I can tell you exactly who I would. I tell you what, I will tell you exactly who I would dress up as a costume in Fall Guys.
And if you stay till the end of the show, we'll tell you that. No, tell us, Pete.
Sandy Toksvig.
That reaction is worthy of that answer.
She's the host of QI.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know who
Sandy Toksvig is.
Yeah. We are the ones who don't know popular culture, Pete.
That wasn't the reason for the stunned silence.
She's really funny. She's really funny.
Yeah, she is very funny. Yeah,
She would be absolutely fantastic in Fall Guys. Like a little costume that says "I love you, Sandy," or like what does Sandy's crew called? Like, you know what, like all these YouTubers have got, like, "Hey, my pals," or whatever it is that they'll say. You know, they'll say like, "Hey, honeys," or like they'll say, "Hey."
The Toksters.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it'd be like.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Pete.
Trocksters. Well, that's because you're not down with the kids, Dan. Jesus.
Well, it'd be better. Did you see? So all this brand stuff that's going on with Fall Guys. Did you see what Marvel Avengers, how they're doing their branding?
No.
So if you've got a Virgin account, you can have Captain America dressed up in the Virgin Media colours. Or if you've got a Vodafone account, you can have them dressed. You can have the Hulk dressed in like this Vodafone coloured garb.
Are you joking?
No.
In the video game?
Yeah, in the video game.
That's it. As soon as we see like Hawkeye decked out in British Gas's colours, that is the harbinger of the apocalypse, isn't it? Really, the final damning indictment of that game.
That is astonishing.
We were meant to all be actually. I don't know if Dan was actually going to come, but we were all meant to be.
I was on the fence.
On the fence. We were all meant to be at the UK Board Games Expo this year.
Yeah.
I really missed it. I really missed the fact that I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it.
Where we go. Not just that I've got 150 quid in cash upstairs burning a hole in my bedside cabinet.
I honestly, I also I have not made purchases this year. I've been like, wow, UK Games Expo, save that. Oh, yeah. That'll be a great fun. I'll be wandering around with arms full of stuff going, oh, look at all this great stuff I've got. And then it's not on because obviously, you know, the realities of 2020 living. But they changed it, didn't they? They've swapped out for a virtual event.
Yes. So by the time this goes live, I mean, it would have happened already. It's happening this weekend.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you had a great time.
And if you missed it, sorry.
Yeah. So UK Games Expo's replaced it with something called Virtually Expo.
Mm-hmm. And I think if it wasn't virtual, we would have never had a hope in hell of being any part of involved in any of it other than simply as attendees.
Sam, and even then they'd probably kick us out. Sam, can you believe we are how many episodes has it taken? 120 odd, and we 110. Yeah. We are 110 episodes in, and a lovely board game manufacturer called Kosmos has said to us, "Hey, listen, do you want to be on our booth for a show?" And we were like, what?
Yes.
And that was really exciting. And so we've done, what have we done? God, what have we done?
So how it worked is we are very fortunate, as you may or may not know, to have a relationship with a couple of board game companies who are very nice and send us some games. We've been fortunate over the last sort of year or so to have developed a really strong relationship with the people at Kosmos, not just because they make genuinely great games, but they're genuinely nice people, and they've been very supportive of what we do. the work that we do and how we sort of go about how we make this ramshackle show. And as Pete said, they got in touch with us and just was just like, do you fancy doing something for the expo? And we were like, oh dear.
Oh no.
We've been rumbled.
Because Yeah, and the thing that was surprising is they do listen to this podcast, so they know that this is what we make as well. It's not one of those things of like we've sent it out like, oh yeah, no, we're totally profesh. So yeah, and then we had to think about what it was that we were going to do for like a set show about at the show basically. So so
and a video, not audio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
this is not our wheelhouse.
No, I know. We were like, oh, we're also going to have to. Well, I had to move the exercise bike.
That was the only thing you did, though.
It was the only thing. Yeah, I thought don't go too far. And so, if you were at Virtually Expo and you visited the Kosmos stand, then you will have seen hopefully a video of us pairing food and drink, real food and drink, with board games that Kosmos makes. And I think, Dan, the reason I bring this up is not to pat my own back, it's to pat your back, Dan.
Oh,
because I think we all did a lovely job ourselves of having a nice time and talking about those things. But I think you, Dan, you've gone the extra mile for editing the whole thing together, because it is genuinely absolutely incredible. It looks fantastic, considering that we all did this at home.
Yeah.
It's not like we got like a camera crew in, which you'll see.
Yeah.
And
cards on the table here.
Yeah. And obviously, Sam, you did an amazing job as well of just of chatting with them and seeing what it was that they were interested in and organising everything with everyone. And really, what I'm saying is, Chris, you and me have really not pulled our weight.
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, I wore a shirt.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you did, didn't you? So what I'm saying is...
Basically, what we're saying is when we get to episode 220, you two better pull out something of equal magnitude.
Because me and Sam are taking the night off.
Yeah. But honestly, I'm genuinely excited to see what people think of it. So we're fortunate enough we get to put that up on our YouTube channel, because we do have a YouTube channel, because we put a podcast up on there. I would love to know what people think of it, because honestly, I think I've never thought of. I don't think anyone's done it before. I don't think anyone will do it again.
No.
And also, if we get loads of views, maybe they'll have us back. That would be quite fun, wouldn't it? But I genuinely, I'm really excited to see what people think of it.
I did start thinking that actually the crazy idea of pairing a board game with food was actually a really fun and interesting way of talking about board games. And it was something different. Yes, obviously we're talking about the food and stuff as well, but it gave us just a completely different avenue of exploring what the games are, why we enjoyed those games in particular. And that was just something that I kind of, as I was kind of watching it more and more, I was like, actually, this is a really fun and different way of looking at games that probably for a reason people haven't done before. And as you say, we probably won't do it again. But yeah, it was just a really kind of really fun experience, I think, for all of us to kind of go through that. So,
that's really awesome.
I mean, say thank you to me. I mean, we were all part of it. We all kind of contributed to it. But thank you to the guys at Kosmos who kind of helped make it possible, really. And kind of thanks for giving us a space on their booth.
It's called Eat, Drink and Play, and you can search YouTube for it. It'll be on there for the rest of recorded time.
Yeah, just also take a look at our social media channels, and you'll see links and stuff on there as well. And you'll get to see our beautiful faces. I mean, I'll put beautiful faces in kind of quotes, but,
asterisk.
We're there.
Yeah.
So Superliminal is a game I'm super excited about. It's been in other places for a while, but it's recently come on the Switch this last year. I think it came... No, it was this year, sorry, it was on the Switch, and it debuted last year, sorry. Previously called the Museum of Simulation Technology when it debuted at Tokyo Game Show way back in 2013. Have you ever been to like a famous kind of tourist location that's like there's a building or something and people do that thing where they take a picture and they're looking as if they're like holding the building up or they're leaning up against the building, and people are like at a distance with a camera going, oh yeah, look, it looks like you're holding the building up.
And stuff.
Well, I have been to Pisa, and outside the front it's full of people just high-fiving invisible people because it's that whole thing.
When I was walking down the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and you look out across the reflection pool in Washington DC, and you see it there, you see Washington's monument. It's just tons of people standing there, either pretending to put their hand on top of it or pretending it's some sort of phallic symbol coming out from their crotch, and it's just like, this is what Abe would have wanted.
Yeah. This is the foundational moment of our entire nation. like it's just so. Oh my goodness!
But yeah, that kind of forced perspective, and you see it a lot in architecture and sculpture. Like in the Statue of Liberty, like the Statue of Liberty was designed to be seen from the ground looking up, really, because they didn't really think you'd be able to see it like at eye level, say, for example. So it's slightly skewed, so it looks anatomically correct from the ground looking up, or as you'd see it from the boat as you'd go past it. Yeah. And this game, Superliminal, which comes from publishers Pillow Castle, and it's really kind of like the brainchild of Albert Scheer, is a game which is based around that simple mechanic. It's a first-person, single-player puzzler, and the whole mechanic really is forced perspective, where if I pick up an object like this pen, for example, if I hold it close to me and drop it, it doesn't really change in size. But if I hold it high above me, so it almost looks like it's in the distance, and I let go of it, suddenly that pen will drop, and it's massive. And equally, I could take a big object and hold it low in front of me, and I can make it small. And I can be creative in how I do that. And similar to games such as Portal, which has that very simple kind of elegant use of the portal gun to solve puzzles, there are echoes of that here.
So hang on, can you like manipulate any object to make it bigger or smaller?
Any object you can pick up, you can do that. And there are some red herrings there. So occasionally, like there's one situation where I just had like about 100 fire exits that I thought were part of a puzzle that I didn't. I nearly broke the game because I was multiplying fire exits, and they're all different sizes, and I didn't know quite what to do with it, really.
I was just going to say, like, what's stopping you just making everything massive or everything tiny, and then you can't find...
Well, I've had that. There was a situation where you've got this tiny little doll's house, and you make it big so you can walk into it, but at one point I made it too big, and I dropped it on top of me. But then it's brilliant. It is, but obviously, like the game prepares that so you don't die, because the whole premise is that you've gone to this particular institute called the Pierce Institute to help you with your dreaming, and the whole premise is, and it's quite loose, that you're lucid dreaming, and you're walking around and you hear these voiceovers of your doctor, Dr. Glenn Pierce, and it's a bit like the Stanley Parable, in the sense that it gets a little bit meta, because you'll walk into what you think is a lab and you'll walk outside it and discover it's a set. And this game is full of those instances where you're leaving what seems to be a reality and going into the actual reality, or you think it's the actual reality. And then the cycle begins again when you wake up, and then you turn the alarm clock off and you begin again in a different place. So it's playing with that, and it's quite telling that the game is called Superliminal. Liminality, this idea of thresholds. So liminal spaces, they're places like doorways or corridors, these in-between places. You're always hovering in that place between reality and fiction, being sleeping and awake, this kind of stuff. And it does some really quite interesting things. And I can't remember the last time, probably since Portal, where I had that experience where my brain is being rewired as I'm learning the new rules of this world, where I could take a little fire exit sign and think, actually, I can make that big enough. I could turn that into a bridge to get from here to here. And puzzling out that is really enjoyable. And I've been playing this handheld on my Switch Lite.
We said that the comedy in Fall Guys was like physical, like slapstick humor. Is the comedy in this, does that come from... as it does with stuff like Stanley Parable and Portal, is it in the absurd, or is it in the like the almost like the shock of like, oh, that's right, and you sort of like, it's sort of funny because it subverts what you expected? Or
it's a kind of more of a wry kind of humor, really. Like in terms of how the game gives you trophies, like there was an instance where there's a vending machine, I just pressed a button on the vending machine, a can of soft drink came out, and then I looked at it like from below looking up, and I dropped it, and this Coke can was suddenly the size of a car, and it just like exploded and just started pinging around the room. I got a trophy for that, I think. Or I got a trophy for like multiplying one thing too many times, or turning off, and pressing the switch on all these kind of fire alarms. I don't really want to spoil it, because it is quite clever in the sense that you just have to keep every level, for want of a better word, you have to keep rewiring the possibilities of the scope of this game. Every time you think you're doing something game breaking, you're actually playing the game. And I was watching a review today where they actually generally broke the game, but they didn't realize it. They just thought it was part of the game, and they actually fell through the floor of the game, and they thought, oh, this is great, this is clearly part of it. And they were just sat around waiting for ages. And it's a really lovely way to pass the time. And I don't mean to render that a disservice, because this game doesn't really outstay its welcome. It starts to plateau a bit towards the latter end, but it's a very short, swift game. And although it may seem like there's no replayability there, it's very. I went back and played it straight away, and it's amazing how quickly you forget some of the puzzles, and because it's asking for a lot of lateral thinking there, and it's largely quite abstract. And it's great fun. There's generally some lovely, hilarious moments where you're walking confidently along a corridor and you realise that actually the end of what you think is the end of the corridor is actually just painted on the wall. Or there'll be like this strange painted markings. You're thinking, what does this mean? Until you get into the right position and everything lines up and you suddenly got a giant chess pawn there. And you boop, take that away and suddenly you've got a gap in the wall that you can walk through. So it plays on that notion of apophenia, which is a bit of a delusion, but it's where we see patterns in things where there aren't patterns, and it's encouraging you to try and look for patterns and, pattern recognition, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of Portal, Stanley Parable, even The Witness, these kind of first-person puzzlers, but unlike The Witness, what's really great about this is there's not a lot of backtracking. There are these kind of doorways which are kind of slightly translucent. When you walk through them, it means you can't take an object through them, which means that clearly then that the puzzle stops here. You're going onward now, but you haven't got to backtrack through all of this.
Yeah, that's great.
You haven't missed something that far back. So you never feel too frustrated. Okay. And it just adds to the enjoyment of knowing, what if I did this here? And just as I was saying before, that hilarious thing where I've got it slightly too big, I've misjudged this, and suddenly a giant children's playing block just goes boom on the ground in front of you, say, for example. But yeah, it's worth a play, and it's great handheld as well. Superliminal, I think that if you're looking for something that's to pass the time, that is another tonic for The Last of Us Part 2, I think Superliminal would be a really good shout for you, really.
When we did the Eat, Drink and Play thing, there was one game that I wasn't allowed to talk about when we were doing it, because mainly the times didn't quite match up and it wasn't available. But now I'm allowed to. Mm-hmm. And it is a game by Kosmos, and I think it is going to be one of my favourite games I've played this year. And I'm going to wholeheartedly recommend it to each of you to play. And it's a game called My City. Okay. And it's a Spiel des Jahres Game of the Year, or Family Game of the Year.
Jeez.
Nominated game from Reiner Knizia, everyone's favourite bow-tie-wearing German board game designer.
What has Reiner Knizia done?
What has Reiner Knizia done?
Yeah, specifically in the world of board games. I guess I don't really need the rest of his. I don't need personal details.
Ingenious, Lord of the Rings Confrontation,
Modern Art.
I've got Modern Art. Modern Art's very good.
Lost Cities, Shot and Totten. You like that one?
Yeah.
I mean, looking on BGG, it's 600 games.
So what you're saying is this lad knows how to make a board game.
Well, let's just say, if you're getting into the hobby of board games, then probably very quickly on you start to recognise certain names, and certain people will pop up quite often. His name is definitely one of those recognisable names in the hobby of board games. He is considered one of the most prolific, and his what he makes generally is always of a very, very high standard. So what's different about My City is that I believe it's the first legacy game that he has designed.
Okay.
So when we talk about legacy games, essentially what they are is a board game where your previous game or round that you play in it will affect subsequent games and rounds you have of that particular title. It's probably as close to a video game as board games kind of get, in terms of if you've played something like The Walking Dead or Life is Strange, where you get those things like Johnny will remember this, or you have acted badly, and therefore your consequences have actions further down the line in the game. Legacy games of board games work in a similar way. Your actions will have certain consequences as you go down the line. Probably the most famous of which is Pandemic Legacy, which Chris and I have both played. I feel like Chris and I may have inadvertently opened Pandora's box when we played the first episode or the first month of Pandemic Legacy Season 2, probably like 2 or 3 days before lockdown started.
And we closed the box, and like Jumanji, we just threw it in the sea.
Chris, we were doing a lot of clearing out recently, and I found our box of Pandemic Legacy Season 2, and it is dusty. It is dirty. So my city works in a very similar way.
In terms of it being a legacy game and not in terms of releasing a global pandemic.
Yes, definitely.
Right, yeah.
So obviously I don't want to spoil anything that my city does. I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about why I think it's has been such a refreshing and exceptionally good experience for me. So the base game is quite easy to explain. You when you open the box, each player, it's like 2 to 4. Each player gets this little city board, and everyone's city board is the same. You will all be encouraged to like write the name of the city in the like top left-hand corner in permanent marker. So I named mine Turnberg with some umlauts over the U to like really make it feel like fancy. But the actual city itself, the map that everyone gets is exactly the same. It's this 11 by 11 grid. There's this little river running through it. There's like these squares that have got little trees on it. Some squares have got little rocks on it. There's like a little forest and a little like rocky mountainous area. And the game starts off really simple. You have this deck of cards and everyone gets the same amount of tiles. So when I say tiles, I mean like, you know, like Tectonomo shaped tiles. And you turn over a card from this deck, and whatever tile it shows, that's the next one that goes into your city. And so you carry on playing the game until either the deck is exhausted or you can't place any more tiles in your city. And you'll get -1 point for every rock that's left uncovered, and you'll get +1 point for every tree that's left uncovered. So as you're laying your tiles, the aim of the game is to try and use the space efficiently and effectively enough to cover up rocks, but keep trees uncovered. And that's how the game starts. If you win, you'll get these things called progress points, which are like circles that you colour in at the top of the board. And if you lose, you will be compensated in a certain way, which as the game starts, you will be able to put a sticker that has some trees on it on the board. Nice. So therefore, on the next game, you've got more of a chance to win the game because you've got more trees on the board, which will effectively, hopefully, make it a bit easier for you to get more points. The winner, on the other hand, they get their progress points, which is like the overall, whoever has the most victory points at the end of the whole experience will win. They will get a sticker that has rocks on it. So therefore, it's just like, well, you think you're so good? Here's some more rocks to cover up. So that's like the basics of like how the game works and some of the very, very simple ways that it introduces this legacy theme in terms of like, if you're doing really well, we're going to try and make the game a little bit harder for you. If you're not doing as well as the other people around the table, then there's like little compensatory bits and pieces that come into the game to kind of help balance it out. There's 24 episodes. Over the course of the 24 episodes, which are split up into 8 chapters, it's creating a very, very balanced and fair experience. You never really feel like one player is ever really steamrolling and like steaming out the gate and doing better than you, because the game is always trying to like pull that player back in, which is great. So the game comes, and as well as these game boards, it also comes in these 8 little envelopes which represent the 8 chapters of the game, which is just like wonderfully exciting. And I've been playing this because of the pandemic. I've been playing this with my wife exclusively. We've been playing this as a 2-player game, and she's never played a legacy game before. She knows what they are because she's often walked in on me and Chris like standing there, like backs hunched.
It's not what it looks like.
Hands on chin, just like looking at the world of pandemic and going, "What the hell do we do, Chris? This is life and death. Everyone's gonna die." And been like, "Oh my god," and just left us to it.
Yeah.
So she knows what there is, but she never played one before. So for her, it's been this wonderfully like exciting experience. And like most of the things my wife says, she's able to distill everything I ever say and think about board games into one simple sentence. And she's just like, oh, this is like a TV box set, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, it is. And so every envelope we have is like a new season of this board game. You open it up and inside it will be little treats like new little tiles, new little cards, new little stickers. And each episode essentially will change up how the game works in a certain way by adding a new rule or by developing how the city actually works. And it's really, really good because it never does anything that's too audacious. It never does anything that's like too out there. And I feel like in my experience, what tends to happen with legacy games is they just get more and more complicated and more outrageous, and like, oh my god, this is more and more stuff to think about and consider. And what starts out as a very, very simple experience suddenly becomes a very, very complicated one. And I can understand how that can maybe be an off-putting experience for some people, especially when it comes to, certain levels of permanence in terms of like, well, if I put this sticker down here, how much is this going to ruin me like 5 or 6 games down the line? However, in my city, like none of that exists because it's, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but it's very much my first legacy game. And it does everything it can in its design to make sure that no one is ever left behind and everyone's enjoying the experience as much as they can. So as I said, there's 24 episodes and 8 chapters, so there's 3 episodes in each chapter. And the first episode is always, here's some new rules. Right, we're just going to get to know the rules for this episode. And then the next episode is always, we're just going to change them a little bit. And then the third episode is just like, right, now we've changed them, see how well you can do with them. Like every chapter is this wonderful, like, sort of like this warm shower of experience where it's just like very, very gentle and comforting, and like you never ever feel like overwrought with what's happening. You just feel like you can enjoy it,
right?
And it is just like a good box set in that way. Like things are changing, things are developing, but because the characters and the base thing are done in such a gentle way, there's never these massive like leaps or steps where you're trying to like put pieces together, a bit like Dark, Chris, like how that's always just like stretching your cognitive function.
Bloody love it.
By jumping across 3 different timelines. This is very much just like a gentle like progression in terms of like its mechanics and how complex I get. It's not as like, it doesn't have as much personality as like Legacy, as like Pandemic Legacy does. Like if you were to look at like it tries to do stuff like there's like some flavor text. Like one of the early things is churches arrive into your city, right?
Okay.
Just on the back of lorries.
So,
Yeah.
Who
left this in?
And it says like the progress of your city has attracted the church.
Okay.
And like churches are interesting because you can never pass laying a church. And if you pass a church, that's it, you're out of the episode. Like you can't complete it. So it has these like little things where it tries to put in these little flavor text, but it's never quite clicked. Like if you were to look at mine and Lisa's boards of my city, at a cursory glance, other than the name in the top left-hand corner, they look exactly the same. There's not that much you can just do with the board to make it really feel like your own. But that's probably the only negative thing I will say about it, because like I think it's been a refreshing and welcoming experience in terms of like bringing games to the table when I've in like a time where I've been like striving for more complex and more in-depth experience, and use like lighter, quicker experiences to bring like the balance to that. My city lands directly in the middle, which is why I think like Pete, I think you and Alex would really enjoy it, because it's one of those games which will make you feel like you are investing in something, but it is so appreciative of your time that you will get that investment from it, but in very small chunks. Like each episode is about 10-15 minutes long. So you can do a whole chapter in an hour.
Okay.
And Dan, I think for someone like you that also A, probably doesn't have the time, but B, sometimes struggles with introducing stuff to someone who is a bit reticent about getting in touch with games, that like level progression, that like difficulty curve that My City does is exceptionally well defined to be like, introduce this to someone who doesn't like games. Like, get them to write on the board. Now they can put stickers down. Now we're going to make this a little bit more complicated, but don't worry because you're going to get an episode to learn how to use it. And don't worry if you're not doing as well as the other person because we'll help you as you play. And Lisa said to me when we were playing it the other day, she said, you know, what are we going to do when we can't play this anymore?
Yeah.
So you know, like that feeling of like what you know when you come into the end of a box set and you can see the envelopes like dwindling in a box. It's just like what's life going to be like when we can't play My City, like a couple of episodes of My City in the evening?
That's where you have the opportunity then to be like, okay, we can progress and try something slightly different. And I have this whole drawer of unopened games for us to play.
But Sam, I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, because I was quite sceptical about this simply because everyone thought that legacy games would be the new genre and they'd be around here for ages. And really, what's kept them going is games such as Pandemic Legacy. And actually, it's simply because I think there wasn't a game like this. There wasn't my first legacy game. There was Risk Legacy, but if you're going to start board gaming, you're not going to jump into Risk. And you're not going to say start in Charterstone necessarily. And you're not going to necessarily jump into Pandemic Legacy straight away. This seems quite nice, innocent. From what I understand from reviews, it's not trying to be full of twists and turns with every envelope. No. It is a nice, gradual layering of a city, unassuming, and totally Reiner Knizia. He's done it again, as far as I can hear. And actually, it's been a while since I've heard about a legacy game that genuinely interests me, and one that I could play with other people that aren't just you.
I think the one bit of advice I'd give if you're thinking like this might be something that you're interested in is Rado, who's he's amazing. He's RADHO on YouTube. Does amazing in-depth experience, like reviews and thoughts on games, and he's almost a dedicated like 2-player board game player. Like basically, he always plays games with his wife Jen. And his thoughts and breakdowns on My City were incredibly helpful to like how we started playing it. Like the first thing he said was make sure you keep your progress points secret. So me and Lisa both have our own little envelopes with our names on them and a little slip of paper in which we keep our progress points secret. Because he said like there could be a point where as the game goes on, like you think, oh, is this the only way we're going to like earn progress points? And suddenly they start flooding at you from all different directions. And if we kept the progress points on like overt and like open knowledge to everyone, I think he said there could be a point where someone gets so far ahead that you'll be like, oh, well, there's literally nothing, there's no more options for me. I can never compete. So that's a really good tip.
I just like the idea of the Netflix analogy that you've been binging it for so long and you'll open an envelope and it'll say, "Are you still watching?" Well, that was another episode of Staying In with Daniel Frost, Peter Willington, Sam Turner and myself, Chris Darby. Thanks again to Kosmos for sending us a review copy of My City, as well as very kindly giving us a spot at their booth in this year's Virtual Expo. If you want to see if we look like the people we sound like, then visit our YouTube channel at Staying In. If you prefer us faceless, then see what we're up to on our Instagram, Twitter and Facebook pages. @StayingInPod is our handle there. Feel free to join the conversation and ask us a question via these platforms, or just email us at stayinginpod@gmail.com. If you just want a quick list of the games we discuss, our Steam curation page has you covered for the digital, and our Board Game Geek profile takes care of the analogue stuff. Lastly, our Spotify page continues to grow with music from the geeky stuff discussed on the podcast. A lovely lo-fi version of a Superliminal track has just made its way onto our Iced Tea playlist, with a fizzy and bouncy Fall Guys piece landing in our With Sugar list. You can listen to them on our page, which is titled, you've guessed it, Staying In. Till next time, however, bye.